As of Sunday, March 17th, it is Selection Sunday for March Madness. And you may think, are we going to talk about the men's tournament? You're damn right we're not, because who gives a shit? Outside of Bronny James, I can't name a single men's basketball player. And as a fan of the women's basketball game, I want to do a quick little preview. Got a good amount of teams that I think have a chance to win it all this year. Also, this is the first podcast I've done since the South Carolina and LSU brawl. I feel like this topic has been beaten to death, so don't worry. I'll be brief. Couple points. One, if this game was great and drama-free, double overtime, game-winning shot at the last second, and oh my God, look at these amazing players, and blah, blah, blah. All these sports outlets would have done is ran highlights from the Iowa game anyways, so they can display Caitlin Clark some more, and rightfully so. She's the best player in the country and the most marketable star in women's sports. So a game y'all would have ignored for the most part regardless, y'all should have went ahead and did that anyways. Secondly, a lot of the response I saw from people within the sport is a whole lot of, well, how will they look at us? Specifically from black fans and black people within the sport. And a lot of it comes from a great place, from people who are trying to grow the sport and don't want there to be a negative connotation. I get it. But me personally, I'm just not that type of guy to give a fuck how they, or whatever you interpret as they, you're correct, how they see me. I just never cared about that, because we know what's going on over here. We know Camila Cardozo is not a violent player. We know that because we watch her. We know that's not how South Carolina get down. We know that's not how LSU get down. We know Dawn Staley's a class act. So if they don't know that, that says more about them than it does about this sport we love. Okay, now we can talk about the actual teams, and since we brought up South Carolina, they are the prohibited favorites. I don't believe in the one team versus the field philosophy in any sport. However, if there was a case where that would be the case, it's this one. ESPN's Women's Basketball Power Index gives them a 39% chance to win. The second highest team is UConn with a 13.9% chance to win it all. We will get to UConn shortly. The Gamecocks are the only Division I team that is undefeated. They are undefeated through the regular season for the second year in a row. They have only lost 2 games or fewer in 4 of the last 5 seasons, including a national championship in 2022, and looked unbeatable again last year until Caitlin Clark went nuclear in the Final Four. Oh, and they couldn't buy a bucket from 3 that game either. So, of course, Dawn Staley went out there and found all the three-point shooters she could find over the offseason, which I find hilarious. The closest they came to losing this year was the conference championship semifinal versus Tennessee. And then Coach Dawn Staley was like, hey, you know our 6'7" center who hasn't attempted an in-game 3 her entire career? How about we draw up a play for her? Knockdown. Game over. Now, they will be without Camila for at least 1 game. At the time I'm recording this, they haven't officially announced what the punishment will be, but I'm assuming it'll only be a game. We're still trying to make some money here. Come on now, get her back in there. But this is a team that lost all 5 of its starters from last year, including number 1 pick Aaliyah Boston, and they haven't missed a single beat. So I think they'll be fine for at least a game in the tournament as far as moving on. Next team with the best chance to win it, we got Iowa, and this one's simple. If you have the best player in the country, you got a chance to win it all. They had no business winning in the Final Four last year. Case in point, they went to the national championship and got spanked against a team that hasn't beat South Carolina in their last 16 games. They just won their 3rd Big Ten championship in a row, and although Caitlin Clark has been struggling from 3 pretty much the whole tournament, but specifically that last game, still managed to come through with a 3-game total of 86 points, was really good playmaking and distributing the ball. The assist numbers may not show it, but she got a lot of what you call hockey assists, which for y'all that don't watch hockey, which is when you pass it to the person that gets the assist. Now, they may be lacking in size just a little bit compared to how they were last year, but on the other hand, most of the teams with size in this tournament do not also have a dominant guard, especially to the caliber of Caitlin Clark. So if the name of the game is we're going to beat them up in the paint and hope to beat them that way, good luck trying to keep up with them scoring-wise when you have the best player in the country from the perimeter. Best of luck to you. Next up, we have the LSU Tigers, who the Basketball Power Index gives a 4.3% chance to win it all. And my biggest question right now is, how bad is Angel Reese's ankle again? Just curious, because she rolled it during the SEC tournament. She walked into the SEC championship with a boot on it. Clearly, she didn't look 100% during the game. When the big fight brawl was going on, she was limping away to the sideline. Now, granted, she's going to play regardless. Like, that's Baltimore strong right there, baby. Like, she going to go out there. But if it continues to get worse during the tournament, at what point is it going to be like, hey, man, you might be better off sitting this one out? That might be a tough conversation for Kim Mulkey to have with her, but if it gets to that point, who knows? But they still are the defending national champions, so they can't be dismissed. The guard play hasn't been to the caliber that it was last year. Now, Haley Van Lith and Flau'jae are great players. Don't get me wrong. But can we see either one of them having the Alexis Morris run that she had those last 3 games, where she looked like Chris Paul coming off those screens and hitting those mid-range jumpers and distributing the ball? I can't see that personally right now. I hope I'm wrong, but I can't see that right now. Size-wise, though, is where they're going to be able to take advantage of a lot of teams. Aforementioned Angel Reese, assuming she has the use of both of her feet, Anissa Morrow, and they made it a point to give Aaliyah Del Rosa some minutes in that South Carolina game in some pretty big spots. I think that was very purposeful by Kim Mulkey because they're going to need her going down the stretch. Another big red flag for LSU is, as I mentioned before, they have not beaten South Carolina in the last 16 games, specifically Kim Mulkey's last 3 seasons that she has been, well, the only 3 seasons she's been at LSU. She is yet to beat South Carolina. And they were able to win it all last year because they were on the other side of the bracket. And they should thank the good Lord that Caitlin Clark was able to knock him out the tournament, because who knows what would have happened in the Natty if they would have made it. Next up, we got USC with the freshman of the year, and you could argue second best player in the country, Juju Watkins. We've seen stories like this before, right? Where the freshman superstar is better than we all think, goes on a magical run through the tournament, and her team ends up winning it all. And this is the Trojans' best chance to make it back to the Final Four since 1994 when Lisa Leslie was there. They do have 2 things that concern me a little bit, specifically that Pac-12 championship game, where Juju went 2 for 15 with 1 assist when Stanford just committed 3 people to defending her religiously every single play, regardless of what happened. Now, they won that game pretty handily, but if that's the blueprint to slowing her down or making sure she doesn't have one of her phenomenal scoring games, how long are the other players who Hallie Rowe called the Juju understudies, which so disrespectful, Howie. Goddamn, how dare you? If that's the blueprint, how sustainable will that be for an entire tournament run? And I look at that game and I compare it to the Caitlin Clark game. And I'm like, oh, that's where 3 years of being the best player on the planet, you can see the difference. Because teams can't play Caitlin Clark the way they played Juju in that Pac-12 championship, because Caitlin will hit you for 10, 12 assists, where Juju at this point in her career was only able to hit him for 1. Quick aside, Bill Simmons from The Ringer, y'all know who Bill Simmons is, on his podcast told a quick story about Juju, because apparently Juju and Bill Simmons' daughter Zoe are the same age. And they were supposed to be on the same basketball team together, but she was so damn good that Juju wasn't allowed to play on the team with the rest of the girls her age. I bring that up to say, since you were a little girl, you've been the best player by a mile on every team you've been on. Not a lot of experience playmaking, because in a lot of these teams, high school, AAU, it's been a lot of, all right, here you go, here's the ball, go score. That's pretty much all the system, and that's why the development of American players is what it is today. The other red flag for them is against teams that have some size on them, those big forwards and centers have been able to give them a little bit of go. Granted, they were able to beat Stanford both times, but one of them required Juju to drop 51 points, and the other one they were able to take her out the game completely. And Cameron Brink, those games, averaged 19 points, 12 and a half boards, and 7 blocks, which was insane when I read the number. I had to go back and watch the games to make sure that wasn't a typo. And then Alicia Pili, who my personal favorite player in college basketball, love watching her play. Utah beat them twice, with Alyssa giving them 30 points and 7.5 boards a game. So if they run into some teams with some size, I'm curious to see how that goes throughout the tournament. But again, if it turns out that they have the best player in the tournament, specifically at guard, you never know what can happen. Next up, we got Notre Dame, who ESPN gives a 3.5% chance to win it all. And, oh, buddy, if we're talking about guard play, in a world where Juju Watkins is a year or so younger or older, we'd be talking about Hannah Hildego as the runaway freshman player of the year. Notre Dame is down a second-team All-American guard in Olivia Miles, who hasn't played a single game this year, and Sonia Citron, who's first-team All-ACC, who's only played, I think, 2 or 3 games all year long. And Hannah, at the tender age of what, 18, just came in and was like, I got this, guys. Third leading scorer in the country, 23.6 points a game, 5.5 assists a game, leads the nation in steals with 4.6 a game, with a great performance to win their conference championship, playing all 40 minutes. This team is on a heater too. They've won 8 straight games, including the aforementioned conference championship, and they have won in a variety of ways. They've put up a bunch of buckets. They've won low-scoring games where they had to rely on defense. I like teams that are be able to give it to you however you want it and can adjust game plan-wise. I think that is a glaring and phenomenal reflection of their head coach, whose name I always butcher. I apologize. Miss Niall Ivy, Jaden Ivy mama, and is able to coach this team and game plan and switch it up. So whatever type of game you want it to be, she got a plan for you. Can't wait to see how this team turns out during this run. Next up, we got UConn. Talked about them earlier. Got a basketball power index chance of 13.8%. They are the second favorite to win it all. Now, they've been out of the national conversation a little more than they've been for even the most casual, I only check in every once in a while college basketball fan for the women's game. You've seen UConn in the national championship quite frequently. In fact, they had the NCAA record for most consecutive appearances in the Final Four from 2008 to 2022 that was just broken last year. But this year, it's been some injuries. The Big East isn't what it used to be as far as competition. They had some weird out-of-conference losses. But the big headline is Paige Bueckers got 2 functioning knees again. And God damn it, she is back. She is getting busy. She's having her best season at UConn so far. 21 points a game on 53, 43, 85% shooting. Combined 83 points in the Huskies' 3 Big East tournament games. I expect a, hey guys, remember me type tournament run for her in this next upcoming month. It's like she's only been the best player in her class her entire life. And if not for these injuries that she's had these past couple years, we'd be reminded of it constantly. But she's back. I don't think people will realize this yet, but she's back. We're going to recognize it soon, though. Next up, we got Stanford, who they give a 9.5% chance through the ESPN Basketball Power Index. In the Pac-12 championship game, Cameron Brink, who in a world where Caitlin Clark doesn't exist, would be the consensus #1 pick for the WNBA draft. She just announced, I believe, 2 days ago, 1 day ago. Got 19-10 with 6 blocks. And the actual leading scorer on the Stanford basketball team, Kiki Ifriden, I apologize to her for butchering her name. I don't know why as a West African I struggle with pronouncing African names. Put in another 18-7 herself. They actually finished with the best record in the Pac-12 this year. But their 5 losses have been weird this year, right? 4 of them are the Pac-12 foes where the offense just didn't show up, weirdly. Colorado, they scored 59. USC, the first time, they scored 58, which is the game where Juju almost outscored them by herself. Arizona, 61, and then Arizona, 61 again. Their other loss was to Gonzaga, where they allowed almost 100 points. So I don't know which Stanford team is going to be able to show up. But when you have a center and a forward down low that are going to be able to control and dominate games, it's going to be a tough out for any team that sees them this tournament. As y'all can see, I'm real excited for this March Madness we're going to have coming up. It's some great teams in there, some great players in there. And I expect every single TV rating record, social media record to be broken. A lot of these players are going to be household names by the time this tournament's over. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark already are. But Paige Bueckers and Hannah Hildegold specifically, we're going to leave this tournament looking at them like, oh, shit. Okay. Oh, and obviously Juju Watkins is in household name territory as well. It's going to be a fun March.